most exciting half, I would say, of GIS Day. Um, I'm Justin Podur. I'm the Associate Dean of Teaching and Learning. And I have a lot of love for GIS. I took my first GIS course, I believe in the 1990s, maybe around 1997 or 1998. I used a package called, oh no, I forgot what it was called. Grass. I used Grass. Then I went from Grass to Arc Info, and I love both. I still love both, modes. And I've taught GIS here, mostly the fourth year course at EUC. And I've even been the coordinator of the GIS certificate program at various times in the distant past. So I love GIS, and I just want you to know that I'm here with you guys. I'm not just some mercenary that was brought in to MC because of my charm and charisma. No, I'm a GIS person, just like you. So I want to introduce our first panel. So we have three wonderful experiences for you today. Three separate experiences. And the first is our, I would say, our EUC experts and alumni panel. And we have three speakers. We have expert Ranu Basu, we have expert Adeyemi Fogosola, and we have expert Connie Ko. I don't know what order they've decided who's going first. Adeyemi's going first. So Adeyemi, I'll just tell you their bios in order. Adeyemi is an assistant professor in geography here at the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change. He is a river catchment scientist who studies how rivers behave and how they are affected by human activities and climate change. Adeyemi's work spans from small headwater streams to large river systems, with a particular focus on the river Niger or Niger. They use a combination of field measurements, Earth observation data, geospatial analysis, and machine learning to understand how natural processes shape rivers and how extreme events such as floods and droughts alter river basins and ecosystems. I'll call you back. I'll just tell you guys about Ranu and Connie. Ranu is professor of geography, also here at the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change, and research faculty at the Center for Refugee Studies. Her research and teaching interests relate to the geographies of marginality, diversity, and social justice in cities, power, space, and activism, anti-imperialism and post-colonial geographies, geopolitics of forced migration and subaltern cosmopolitanism, critical geographies of education, and spatial methodology, including critical GIS. And then we have Connie Ko, who's an alumna of EUC. Connie Ko is a geospatial technologist specializing in LiDAR, AI, and environmental applications. She has led projects that enhance aerial mapping accuracy, streamline terrain modeling, and automate point cloud analysis. Her work includes developing drone-based LiDAR tools for forestry, supporting tree counts, wood volume estimation, and digital terrain modeling, as well as collaborating with national defense teams to detect landmines, dragon's teeth, and other hazards using multi-sensor UAV data. Connie's work is known for delivering innovative solutions, including rapid wire AI prototype for fast wire detection. Her work reflects a commitment to using geospatial intelligence and AI to solve real-world environmental and safety challenges. So, Adeyemi's up.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
I gotta stand there with you. The camera's gonna follow me.
Okay. Adi Lushala. I study rivers, as Justin mentioned, and today I'll be talking about some of the things I've been doing using geospatial technologies, which here I've titled From Pixels to Flow Patterns, LSPIV, which is Large Scale Particle Image Velocimetry, for spatial temporal analysis of surface velocities. The river here, the background here is the Black Creek, which I just came back from my fourth year students. So I've been studying this river, and then I've been using some geospatial technologies, and that's what I'll be talking about today. Okay, as I've said, large-scale particle image velocimetry is an emerging research field. And what this does is it captures 2D. For my own study, it captures 2D velocity fields, and velocity, I would define that as the speed at which a river is moving. You want to look at the speed at which a river is flowing from one section to another without coming in contact, with that river. So what we do initially, or what we do for now, this is what we do. You enter the stream and then use what we call a flow tracker, or what you call current meter. You enter into it, then you measure your velocity, and then at a point, and then you capture the velocity field. This is possible. This is what we've been doing. But then it becomes impossible. Here, this should play. I don't need. Yeah. It becomes impossible when you have large flows. This is July 16, 2024 flood across the GTA. But it becomes very impossible to move from being entering into the river system, or my student entering into the river system, and then you coming into this system to measure the velocity. And then but outside that, it becomes highly impossible, during, sorry about that. It becomes highly impossible during the winter time to even capture the flow. I mean, there's a flow going on here. You can see some pockets. I mean, here it's dark, but there's a flow going on under the ice. This is ice covered channel. And the only way, you can hear the wind, the only way we can do this, the only way you can capture velocity, within this kind of system, when you use non-contact imaging technologies, such as large-scale particle image velocimetry. Sorry. Yes. Now, just going into the possibilities, I have 10 minutes. What we've done, or the proof of concept here, is to compare from my mobile phone, to compare my LSPI velocity measurement with my flow tracker. And then, as you can see from the figure here, the LSPIV measurement is doing well as expected, because it's a surface velocity. It's expected to be higher than the depth average velocity based on some known concept. And then beyond that, what your current meter cannot do, we can also capture across time steps from bank to bank, different spatial patterns of velocity as you go from the left bank to the right bank. This is one possibility that we've been able to do. And then moving on away from this, you can see during the flood, you can also capture surface velocities. And then more than that, you can also capture your left to bank, your left to right bank velocity distributions. And this is needed for hydrological modeling. It's needed for hydraulic mapping within stream channels. You can also do that for directional analysis and all that. And why we celebrate GIS Day, why we can celebrate things like this, is because these are open source applications. Using your phone, we all have mobile phones. We can all go to River Channel, capture the video, and then use your open app, open applications, and then you can do some of these analyses, to measure your velocities. And then you can do that to also to capture discharge measurements all around the river channel. While I would really encourage this is because in some places across the world, we are not opportune, or they are not opportune to have what we call gauging stations, like we have, in some countries. Here in Canada, we boast of some of the best gauging stations across the world. But even at that, we also have what we call hydrological blind spots. There are areas where you can't have gauging stations. Therefore, you can you can empower communities, you can engage, participants, you can engage participatory, mapping, whereby you can give, phones to community people to just go to the riverbank, capture the videos, and then you can turn that into some sort of participatory mapping where people can every day have, flood alert systems, every day have, their flow measurements from nearby rivers given to them on their mobile phones. And that's why, it's possible for us to do some of these things beyond everyday routine gauging stations that might not be able to capture some other hidden spots or some other blind spots across the river, the river channel. For the ice cover channel, this is a proof of concept. This is possible in very few countries across the world. And this is only in temperate countries here in Canada, Siberia, Russia, and some parts of the United Kingdom where you can have channels like this with ice. But then even here in Canada, we don't even have velocities at this granular scale. But using LSPIV, open source platforms, and then using your mobile phone, you can capture velocity metrics across space and time. And with this, you can do some other hydrological modeling and some other mapping analysis. This is where I'll be stopping for now. Thank you very much for listening. If you have questions, you can reach out to me or you can see me at the end of the discussion. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to GIS Day. And my name is Connie. I'm Connie Ko, and I've worked in York University for 19 years before I work in Teledyne for 3 years now. I'm the application engineer in Teledyne, and my specialty is to apply LiDAR data into different applications. Today, I'm going to show how we make traditional 2D mapping into a 3D one. So what is LiDAR? LiDAR stands for light detection and ranging. The principle is very simple. So we have a sensor, and then we send out a laser signal, and we'll measure the time for the signal to come back to get the distance. So imagine you're doing this millions and millions of times, that over time, you can map a precise world surface, Earth surface for forestry, for cities, smart city, urban applications. And you can have what we call a point cloud after the sensing. So LiDAR data can be colored by intensity. That's basically measuring the reflection that's coming back from the laser signal. You can color by height. That's also very popular because you can immediately see what's higher from the ground and what's below the ground even. Terrain is one of the most popular products derived from LiDAR because not only LiDAR can capture for example, you've got trees, not only the top of the canopy, it can penetrate through the canopy and reach the terrain. So you can derive the terrain model 3D right away. When you drape imagery on top of it, you'll get the RGB value, which is what our eyes are used to. So for example, here I have draped the Google Earth overlay on it, and you can see some green on the vegetated area. You can see the river that's flowing through the valley. So what does LiDAR matter? LiDAR is three-dimensional. We can derive shape, size, volume, and proximity accurately. It's vertically rich, as I have mentioned. You get the 3D precise measurement in sub-centimeter level. It also measures the intensity. You can drape color on it. You can fuse other sensors to it to make your prediction, if you're doing prediction model, more accurate. Light is very accurate because with the speed of light, it can measure the distance very accurately. Most of our sensors can measure up to sub-centimeter level of precision. So it's very good for surveying. So here is what the camera see. And here you can see what LiDAR can derive from the point cloud. This is one of my favorite visual. This is the Google Earth images on a station, on a utility substation. But what you can see from LiDAR immediately, the height, you can see the line right away that shows up. And if you section the part where the pylons are, you can see the 3D structure immediately. So a little bit about the hardware. So about 25 years ago, we have the LTM 1225. And what I want to focus today is the development of the hardware from the past 25 years. I want to talk about the maximum altitude that we can fly right now and the number of pulses that we can send per second. And why are these two important? Because the higher you fly, the wider the field of view, and the faster you can complete your mission. Why number of pulses you send important? Because you can imagine that basically the resolution of your point cloud. So nowadays, we can not only acquire 1 million points per second, we can also process them real time on board. What's also extremely popular right now is something that you mount on the drone. They're lightweight, they're cheaper, they're agile. The most important reason, one of the most important reasons is that they're way cheaper and they're way easier to fly. You don't need to hire a pilot for that. Okay, so calibration is more than just a technical term. You can see the one on the left, it's well calibrated, and the one that's 0.05 degree off. And you can see the light pulse is separated. So well calibrated instruments are very important for any system, any GIS modeling that you're working with. Accuracy is very important. Okay, last two slides about application. So here I want to show you the left side is the utility application. So LiDAR has changed the utility world in many ways. You can map the lines in 3D. You can map the pylons in 3D. In case there's a disaster, in case there's a big rainfall, you fly the first time where you have good pylons and line. The second time when you fly it, you can see the difference immediately. You can tell difference as the flight crew flying, and they can tell the ground crews which pylons to prioritize and which one to fix immediately. So that workflow make a lot of the utility company more efficient this way. Second one is the forestry application. I was told by one of my clients, they want to evaluate timber value of the lot. So we fly over it, we count it, we find the species, and we make them a value. So this is how they make decision whether to buy this plantation lot or not. So this is another use case. One last one. A couple weeks ago, I was invited to IDEAS, Innovation for Defense and Excellent Security by National Defense and Canadian Armed Forces. This is a research and development project that we have using one of the drone LiDAR that I showed you earlier. We do on real-time detection for two things. One is dragon teeth, the other one is the razor wire. And this is the real-time results that you see. The blue ones, the blue points, you see their dragon teeth, and they're detected real-time as we're drawing the drone. The purple one are razor wire, and they're also detected correctly as we're flying over the playground site. We also derive the terrain as we fly through to detect the berm and ditch. while we're there. So exciting things going on in LiDAR. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
What?
That's the
Wonderful. Well, warm welcome to everyone here to York University and GIS Day. I see some familiar faces and I've been working on GIS for a long time now, but I come here today as not a GIS scientist per se, but more as an urban social political geographer. So what is an urban social political geographer? What do they do with GIS and how can they use GIS? So we've heard a lot of examples since the morning in terms of looking at questions of access to services, infrastructure, and so forth. But if you have a particular social political critical lens on GIS, the questions that are quite central to a critical GIS framework are questions of power, questions of social justice, questions of spatial equity, questions of ethics, confidentiality, surveillance. So these are questions that those who are working on critical GIS, particularly using that framework, such as feminist GIS, indigenous GIS method frameworks, are particularly interested in. So what I'd like to do is, in terms of what a critical GIS does, is not only technically thinking about what are the techniques in terms of masking or highlighting or looking at missed data or looking at questions of ethics, what do they do? And also philosophical questions, right? In terms of thinking about broader questions, social political questions of power, social justice, and so forth. So what I'd like to share with you today is, in the very brief time that I had a longer presentation, but to think about the times we're in. And the times we're in are in unprecedented times of conflict, where the disruptive forces of global displacement, and I do a lot of work on forced migration, are caused by ongoing wars. We've seen climate change, environmental displacement, economic hardships. And we know, all of us know, that this is one of the most critical challenges of our time. And so in the midst of such harsh realities, the quest for imagining, pursuing, and sustaining global cultures of peace, right, are very imperative, whether it's through the state or whether through civil society organizations and local organizations as well. So what I'd like to share today is, can we use GIS to understand civic capacities? Can we use GIS to understand questions of peace and social sustainability? What would that look like? How can we imagine these local specificities and microgeographies of peace? Here, whoops. Or am I using it?
No, it's okay.
No?
Yes, it's not.
No, not worth it.
Big bunch.
Yeah. So just to go through this again, so this is just in the short time that I have, just very quick graphs to show you the trends at a glance, where 123.2 million people are forcibly displaced as of today. There are different categories but most of them are refugees or statelessness or internally displaced people. It has increased incredibly over the years. Many of them are children, primarily children. And so to think about these local institutional contexts within the broader context of global displacement, what makes for a socially just and sustainable city, and why critical GIS? So very quickly, I don't think I have enough time to do the potential, but to think about the school, I think Joe mentioned the question of school and social sustainability. So hopefully this presentation will respond to some of your queries that you had. What is the school? And also continues on the discussion from the morning in terms of the question of schools. But what is the school-community relationship? How can we understand these local democratic institutions as centers for civic capacity? And what are the possibilities, again, for peace and for change and local peace and initiative? And I want to argue towards a concept called multifarious spaces. So this is something we just saw in the morning presentation, sustainability goals, and in this particular case, drawing on education, questions of inequality, sustainable communities, and peace. I want to add peace here. So if we look at forced migration context in Canada, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through this in great detail, but we know that Ontario has the largest number of migrants, and that continues today. They're economic, they're refugees, they're forced migrants, they're coming in different categories. Primarily economic migrants coming from different parts of the world, many from the global south. And they are primarily centered in urban areas, Toronto being primarily one of the places. And this is some data that shows a concentration of people from all over the world, as you can see in the city of Toronto. Many of them concentrated in the urban area. And this is some maps showing you the concentration of immigrant population and those who don't speak English. So the case studies of Toronto, given the interest of time, there is one we could look at: what are school community relationships in terms of urban sustainability as civic capacity, and what are the possibilities in terms of local peace initiatives? So a couple of years ago, there was a host of during the Mike Harris regime, during the Common Sense Revolution, there were a lot of school closures across the province that affected a lot of community-based schools and the kind of possibilities that school offered, the neighborhood school relationship. So if you're looking at a school as civic capacities, this is the various kinds of engagements that schools are involved in. And all of you know this better than others. And these were the schools that were slated for closures. And in this work, I did a lot of work looking at the relationship of schools to the underlying neighborhood characteristics from the census, and also aggregating it by school district. And we saw that those schools that were in lower income areas were more likely to be slated for closure. And those who had immigrated more recently, those are the neighborhoods that were slated for closure. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about is the possibilities that schools with people from different parts of the world, how do they live, and is the everyday lived civic capacity expressed? Toronto very much celebrates itself as a city of diversity, as we all know, and many of these gray areas are industrial areas which have been refurbished into different kinds of ethnic and different cultural community centers. And these, as all of us who live in the city are more than aware that these are all over, expressed all over and in the city. And a lot of engagement goes on in these different spaces. And when I did some of my work on forced migrants, they expressed the public space as a city of Nimiti, the Tamil word for peace, a city of memory, desire, and imagination, a city of fluid resistance, and a city of integrated multiplicity. And I'm just going to touch on number 3 because I have 2 minutes. Okay. So when we think of the city, we think of it in terms of these are the different communities coming from different parts of the world, the Polish here, the Tamils there, the Sri Lankans there. But this is, again, something I want you to leave with, is this is the true reality in terms of there are 10 to 13 community groups in each neighborhood. That's the dark blue. So it's more than this. It is, I can't go back. Sorry. Okay. Oh, I don't think I can go back, can I?
And with the other.
Oh, with the other back. Okay. So instead of this, it is this. And this is the languages that are expressed in the schools. And what the project really indicated, which was really, really fascinating, what it was in terms of understanding integration, it wasn't a one-way process. It wasn't just learning a dominant language, but it was also not just learning a language of heritage, but it was also neighborhoods in close proximity to each other, learning each other's language. So my interest might be in understanding Italian or Tamil or so forth. And this was similarly expressed in all the schools. So you can see the multifarious schools in this graph are a high percentage of schools expressed as this particular way of local peace building, multifarious, integrated multiplicity that expresses the city in a very different way. And these are often found, if you think about counter mapping process in very most recent immigrant neighborhoods, where you can see the blue neighborhoods in the city, more than 9 school types that are classified as multifarious. And these spill into the neighborhoods. So in an age of displacement and global displacement, these are lessons we can learn from the local schools and from our local communities. And so these are the sort of the structural challenges that remain for us. There's continuing challenges to the global peace process in terms of global displacement from the global. We have on another level the neoliberal welfare state, where there's cutbacks and retrenchment in the public services, whether it's education or healthcare, and there is stigmatization and displacement. And so thinking about schools instead of raising these rich community organizations is to reimagine local capacities for peace. So I'm going to end there. Do I have one minute? I have 1 minute. I just wanted to share with you that some of the work that my students here have done, fantastic work in a course that I teach on the geographies of education, and where they have actually looked at the civic capacities school by school using GIS data and creating, sorry, did it go away? There it is, there. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So just using the same framework that I shared with you in terms of civic capacity building, I just wanted to share some of the fantastic work that is being done over a couple of years for my students who have looked at various schools across the GTA, and they have used Esri, ArcGIS, and others to map some of this. And I just wanted to share some of this. I don't know if I can, and you can see what they've done is they've looked at census information, they've looked at other kinds of local school information and created story maps and other kinds of possibilities. And so this is just one example out of 50 or so so you can see if they've done school analysis, looking at census, looking at school data, visiting the sites, looking at what kind of capacities are available in the school, doing different kinds of neighborhood analysis, and creating understanding the discussions in terms of the frameworks that I just shared with you. So there's certainly a window here, an opportunity for us to think about using GIS for social spatial justice through a kind of critical framework for change. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much to our panelists. And we have this small token of our appreciation to each of our panelists. Thank you so much. And we got our photo, Sophia. Yep. Smile for the camera. Okay, thank you so much again to our panelists. What a diverse range of methodologies and ideas. And now we have a more focused panel from the Canadian Armed Forces. We have, I'm going to introduce you individually, right? So first we have Master Corporal Megan DiNardo. They are a geomatics technician with the Canadian Armed Forces, currently serving at the School of Military Mapping in Ottawa. With 6 years of experience in the Canadian Armed Forces, Master Corporal DiNardo has worked in both domestic and international environments, applying GIS technology in support of defense operations across a range of challenging climates. I'll cut it short. And today they're going to talk about mapping the mission, the role of geomatics technicians in the Canadian Armed Forces. I'll give you a 5-minute and a 2-minute.
Megan, do you have a PowerPoint? Yeah. It's already on the, yeah.
Right.
Focus has to be on the concept.
Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Mapping the Mission, as was said. So we're going to be talking about the geomatics technician trade within the Canadian Armed Forces. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself so that you can get a sense of what a career in the Canadian Armed Forces can look like. So I've been in the Armed Forces for the past 6 years as a geomatics technician. My journey started with 2 years at Algonquin College, where I learned everything I needed to know to become a junior technician. I've also had the privilege of working with coalition partners in the United Kingdom, where we got to share knowledge and learn from other geomatics experts. I was also deployed just last year towards counter-terrorism operations. So who are geomatic technicians? We are the map makers and the spatial analysts of the military world. So our job is to transform raw geographic data into powerful tools that helps commander make informed decisions on land, at sea, and in the air. So whether we're planning a mission, navigating unfamiliar terrain, or visualizing the battlefield, geotechs provide the geospatial intelligence that helps operations move safely and effectively. So what is it exactly that we do? At the entry level, we create essential products like navigation maps, location references, and multi-criteria analysis products, giving troops a clear picture of the environment on the ground. As we advance, we move towards complex analysis. So we're defining terrain for operational planning and producing overlays that integrate intelligence and strategy. At the systems level, we become the architects of the geospatial infrastructure. So we maintain the portal, we create tools and applications that helps connect the CAF's critical spatial data. We also provide specialized geomatics advice to personnel across all of the command levels. So why does our work matter? Every mission depends on knowing the ground truth. So our work turns data into clarity, enabling commanders to see the battlefield before they even have to step out onto it. So let's dive into some examples. So one of the most common products we have to do is a briefing map. So they can be used before or during mission planning to give commanders a quick visual snapshot of the area. So this particular example is an intelligence map. We're trying to visualize underlying causes for Ukrainian civil unrest. Do keep in mind, this product was created in 2014, so it's over a decade old now, but it still is a good example of a briefing product. So we are considering factors such as political affiliations, language, and ethnicity. So if we're looking just at political affiliations, for example, the areas that are surrounded in beige are pro-Ukrainian, and then the areas surrounded in blue are pro-Russian. So imagine all of this was provided to you in this spreadsheet. You wouldn't be able to draw those spatial correlations as easily. So this is exactly what these products are used for. It's to make it easier for analysts to understand the bigger picture, and it helps us correlate things much more easily. So here's an example of a multi-criteria product. It looks much better when it's in person, I promise you. So with these decision support maps, we combine different factors like terrain, infrastructure, and threat zones into a clear picture. So by layering and weighting different elements, we can highlight safest routes or best areas for bases and landing zones. So in this particular product, it was created to help mobility analysis. So we're looking at road networks, railways, waterways, population areas, to try to see what our movement within this region is going to look like. What are our options? What are our limitations? It's to help us draw a picture in planning. So we're turning complex data into simple, actionable insight for faster, smarter decisions. All right, line of sight. These products are good to answer a critical question. What can I see from where I'm standing? So for example, a sniper might come to me and ask me, what will I see if I'm at the top of the building compared to the ground floor? So I create products for him, green representing areas that they can see, and then they can start answering some questions. What are the buildings I'm going to be able to see? How far am I going to be able to see? And then also maybe where the enemy is going to be located, depending on where my blind spots are going to be. Another example, so not everything we do necessarily requires a finished product. Sometimes it's just about answering a simple question. So I've had people come up to me and ask me, Megan, if I'm driving and I want to do a shortcut and cut to the other road, do you think I'll be able to make it up the ridge? So we're like, okay, let's see. We draw a line, we get the slope, and then we view the vehicle specifications and say, according to the slope, your vehicle should be able to make it up or not. Permitting also if it's been raining and the terrain is good, the ground is good. So just by answering this question is enough for the member to know or give them a sense of if it's going to be good or not. So another example of an unpolished product that could easily answer a question is someone coming to me and asking me, hey, Megan, I'm interested into setting up a operation post or an observation post, sorry. So if I'm going to be standing at this location and have these arcs of fire and at this elevation, can you give me a feel as to what I'll be able to see? Is this going to be a good observation post for me? So then green represents what they're able to see, pink they cannot see, and then that's enough just to answer or give them an idea before they even have to go out and step on this field. So it's all about, so these on-the-spot answers matter because they help troops make safe, informed decisions in real time. And it's about turning complex data into simple guidance when it counts. All right, a gridded reference graphic. So have any of you played Battleship before? Yeah. So if you've played the game, then you're already familiar with how this product works. So it's about using a grid system to be able to easily call out locations. So it helps teams coordinate movement, mark key points, and share information without confusion. So example, instead of I'm walking through this big parking lot, I can just say I'm walking through Golf 8, or I'm entering building 21 now. So these are great for ground forces. They'll usually carry them on their arms, and it's a quick reference for them. And it's often going to be paired with a more zoomed out product just to help them with orientation. So with extreme weather events becoming more frequent, products like flooding analysis too are becoming more frequent. So these help emergency teams respond quickly and give commanders insight as to how flooding might affect movement and operations. So we can already start assessing how many buildings are going to be impacted, how far should we position ourselves depending on the flood levels. So the Canadian Armed Forces' top priority is to defend Canada, but we also contribute to global stability through operations around the world, often as part of NATO or UN missions. So domestically, we respond to natural disasters under Operation Lentis. So these are pictures of operations that we've done within the country, and it's helping provinces during floods, wildfires, or ice storms. So the most recent one that we did for Atlantis was actually the Nova Scotia wildfires. So why choose this career? I can tell you all these things, but it's a career that you won't regret. Like you are doing real life work or you're being part of actual missions. So it's really work that's high impact and high value, and you're always thanked for the work that you do. Perks and benefits, the military, they treat you well, you're part of the federal government. But the main one that why I joined was for travel and adventure. So if you want to learn more, we do have a webpage, or There's the forces.ca website that also has all the available information. Do I have time for questions?
Well, maybe one.
One? Is there a burning question?
Recognize if you haven't asked one yet, now's your time. I heard you speak.
It's okay if you don't too. I'll be here.
They get marks.
Oh.
Sure. Pick two quick.
It's like the variety of education that the military provides for post-secondary.
So are you speaking for this occupation specific or just as a whole?
Just as a whole.
So there's a lot of things that you can. So if you want to do an officer stream, then the military can provide you a bunch of different undergrad programs that you might be interested in. And then if you want to become a geomatics technician specifically, then we're part of either NCM STEP, where you can register or sign up to any college like you would usually do. So do a regular application.
Like here.
So a regular application, but the benefit is, or the bright side of it is, not only is your education paid, but you're also paid to be in school. So you're graduating debt free.
It's like paid completely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tuition and service.
I can add a little bit to that as well.
Yeah.
If
Up here.
we have to come up here. Sorry, I'm Professor Bunch. I have been a reservist in the primary reserves. And I can tell you that as a reservist, you also get a contribution of $2,000 per year to your tuition and guaranteed full-time summer employment for at least 4 years.
So many perks. Another question?
Did you have one? Okay.
No, thank you. Thank you. And I'll be around all day if you want to talk.
Okay, so next we have Corporal Nikolina Gelmanovsky joining us. Corporal Nikolina Gelmanovsky is New York-based technical program advisor specializing in systems-based solutions to complex policy, innovation, and security challenges across public, private, and multilateral sectors. Her military service involves integrating geospatial analysis, geoinformatics, all-source intelligence, and peace support, for which she was recently awarded the 2025 Commonwealth King Charles III Coronation Medal at the Permanent Mission of Canada to the UN in New York, serves on the board of the UN Association, consults for DARPA Ventures with NSF, DoD, and Special Forces partners. She holds an MBA in Management, Innovation, and Law from Ivy, a bachelor's in Computational Media from U of T, executive education from MIT and Johns Hopkins, and certification in UN peacekeeping intelligence and NATO civil military cooperation. And she'll be talking to us about mission critical intelligence and the geospatial nexus, emerging tech, AI enabled analytics. Okay, Nikolina, take it away. You're muted.
Thank you. And I'm just trying to figure out my tech here, so should be fine. Actually, there we go.
Nikolina, you're muted for some reason.
We did hear her.
I heard you just now.
So can you all hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, thank you. Give me just a moment here. My Zoom crashed, but I'll be right on. Okay.
Whoa.
All right, let's see here.
Yes, we can see your slide.
Can you hear me as well?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and happy GIS Day. The title of my presentation is Mission Critical Intelligence and the Geospatial Nexus, Emerging Tech and AI-Enabled Analytics. So today, I wanted to give you all an inside look at how geospatial technologies underpin modern defense, diplomacy, and peace support operations. And it looks like the screen is a little small there. Is there any way for us to make that a little bit larger for everyone?
Are you able to zoom in on it on your end?
All right.
Or presentation mode you can use? Maybe the 3 dot, oh, that's a little bigger.
Okay.
And can you F11 maybe to get rid of the...
There we go. All right. So is that a fair size for everyone?
Can everybody see the slide? Yeah, we have a thumbs up here.
Okay, great. All right. So a bit of background on me. My name is Corporal Nikolina Gelmanovsky. I'm currently based in New York City, and I work as a technical program manager in Canadian Forces Intelligence and CIMIC. I'm also a DARPA venture consultant and a board advisor to the United Nations in New York. So in every mission from disaster response to peacekeeping, almost every critical question begins with what's happening, where is it happening, and who is affected. And I want to start by showing you 2 different Canadian Forces trades that I've been fortunate to work within, where we utilize GIS as a tool to answer those questions specifically. So the first one is the intelligence operator trade. And let me just demystify the role for everyone here. We've all seen memes like this, what strangers think I do, what my family thinks I do, etc. And I would say that it's really a combination between these 3 here. So using digital maps, using analog maps, indexing a substantial amount of military doctrine and technology information, which is what you don't see here. And yes, a lot of PowerPoint. So you'll see those 3 elements coming together in this quick video, and hopefully everyone can see and hear this.
Yes, we can hear it.
Great.
Threats to Canadians and our global partners are evolving faster than ever. To counter these threats requires the ability to gather intelligence and then provide advice to commanders to help them make the best possible decisions.
The audio stopped.
To emerging crisis situations in developing nations. Canada's military and political leaders need to know what's happening as it's happening. Intelligence operators collect, process, and present that information.
Okay. So as the video said, intelligence operators collect, process, and analyze information to support operations. So similar to Master Corporal DiNardo's trade, intelligence operators also turn raw data into mission critical insights. But I would say that the critical difference here would be that the intelligence operator has a much more doctrine and tactics focused perspective, whereas, you know, as in Master Corporal DiNardo's trade, they're very, very specialized to geomatics. We're also highly trained in geomatics, but it's more from sort of like a theoretical perspective, like what would happen in this situation with these variables. And most of what intelligence operators do is on the planning side. They're work is really relied upon. We also collaborate with geotech. So it's really like a collaborative effort. It's a shared effort. And the work of geotechs gets really, really specific and technical, and it's super fascinating. So what we do then is produce intelligence assessments for commanders that might include anything related to, a most likely course of action, a most dangerous course of action, least likely course of action from our adversaries. And then we utilize geospatial analysis as an element of all source intelligence. So there's so many subspecialties of intelligence, human intelligence, signals intelligence. There's just so many subdisciplines. I would invite you to take a look into that afterwards. But primarily, we will develop, like I said, these threat courses of action maps. So that would include force disposition of the adversary, objectives, and end states. Also, weather analysis maps. So that could contain precipitation data, wind data, temperature data, anything that affects mobility. Terrain analysis maps, features, lanes, objectives, canalizing ground, avenues of approach, and the rating of different types of approaches, and then some key terrain. Another trade that I wanted to introduce you to was this CIMIC operator trade, or civil military cooperation operator. So this individual connects the mission to community needs and services. CIMIC operators facilitate cooperation between military forces and civilian authorities, support humanitarian access, stabilization, community engagement, and provide commanders with civil environment situational awareness. So some of the GIS related or GIS based products that a CIMIC op might generate would be a civil infrastructure map. So that could include hospitals, roads, utilities, essential services, humanitarian impact maps, displacement, destruction, or relief zones, stakeholder presence maps. So that could include municipal authorities, NGOs, community leaders, and engagement sites. And again, the work of a CIMIC op also leverages the amazing technical capacity of our met techs and our geotechs. So it's just a little more focused on that cooperation component between military forces and civilian authorities. So both of these trades rely heavily on GIS tools to help commanders and other senior decision makers to visualize various aspects of our operating environments. And because we're living through one of the fastest transformations of geospatial technology in history, I wanted to highlight 5 areas in defense technology that are driving this shift. Firstly, with AI-assisted automated change detection, AI can now flag abnormalities in satellite imagery, destroyed infrastructure, new construction, displaced populations, and that can happen in minutes or seconds rather than days. So that's a huge improvement on the technology and capacity of our forces. With an AI-enabled advanced remote sensing, optical radar, multispectral, and thermal sensors can provide all condition visibility as well as predictive analytics. So what's great about that is that we could say with a certain degree of likelihood, just based on the information that we have that are, that's collected via sources, information that we know about technology and about doctrine, and as well as sensor data, we can make those predictions, which is very, very cool. And with uncrewed systems, tactical sensor integration, that also ties into the previous technology. So technologies like UAVs can gather local hypergranular data for intelligence applications. And lastly, with digital twins and simulations, we can now rehearse missions in virtual GIS-enabled models before anyone even steps foot in the field. So that improves the precision and safety of our operations. I also wanted to give a quick nod to Esri, our fellow presenters here today. Esri actually makes two very robust softwares based on the same general architecture. They're both used in the context of the military to enhance the work that we do. One of those is ArcGIS All Source. This is an intelligence application that allows users to bring all sources of data together to create actionable intelligence. So a lot of the various analysis methodologies that intelligence operators and analysts use, they are kind of integrated into the software itself. So the software has an incredible amount of functionality and complexity. So I would invite you to Google that to learn a little bit more and even see some use cases of that technology in play. And then there's ArcGIS Online, which is a web-based application that supports real-time mapping, field data collection. It has dashboards and collaboration. So this is something I would urge you to all look into. There's a free version that you can play around with at home. And I think this will just give you a general sense of some of the functionality of ArcGIS software if you are not an expert already, and if you're just sort of getting your feet wet. And of course, in a theater of operations, when communications degrade, which they often do, ArcGIS and other similar vendors can offer offline map packages, mission-ready mobile tools, and distributed common operating picture architectures for contested or low bandwidth environments. So that is some very cool tech. All right, so I hope through our quick presentations today that you are able to gain a glimpse into the future of spatial decision-making and geospatial leadership within intelligence. If you have specific questions related to intelligence or CIMIC, my email address is noted here, so you can feel free to reach me anytime. I've also included a link to our application page if you have an interest in applying directly to any of the roles we mentioned here today. I want to thank you all for your interest in what we do with GIS. It's very exciting to all of us, and it's so cool to be able to geek out with all of you here today. And I think we have a couple of minutes for questions, so I'd be happy to take any of those.
Okay, thank you. Nicolina, do we have any questions for Nicolina?
Yeah.
If not, we will say thank you to both our presenters. Yeah, how can we get Nicolina our little bag? Okay, thank you again. Okay, we're gonna go right into our next presentation.
Thank you so much, guys. Actually, Central Toronto Academy does have to go.
Hey, thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Guys, what are you saying?
Thank you for coming.
Grab a sandwich on the way, okay? Or grab some snacks. But you can go to the next speaker, yeah.
For the rest of us, we have two more.
Tim Hen.
We have Peter Hazlitt, the Vice President of Operations for PCI Geomatics. I knew it as PCI Geomatica. You remember that time? Oh, okay, all right. PCI Geomatics. He is an experienced Earth observation professional with over 30 plus years of experience in the fast-paced, ever-changing world of satellite imagery and analytics. He has spent his career helping people learn about and use satellite imagery and analytical data to solve real-world problems. And Peter will be talking about careers and innovative projects. Okay. Peter. Have a solid 15. Yeah. I give you a I'll give you a 5 and a 2, okay? I'll be holding these up when you have 5.
Forward and then the one.
Thank you. Welcome all. I'm glad to be here. Happy GIS Day to you. I'm glad to be here representing PCI Geomatics Catalyst. PCI Geomatica was the product. About 5 years ago, we did a rebrand of the product. Everything is now Catalyst and Catalyst.earth. So you may see me under Catalyst.earth. I'm going to talk a little bit about Catalyst and our products and where we fit, talking around how this industry has changed. Myself, I have been in this industry since 1994. I joined PCI. I joined as a customer service person, talking on the phone to people, sitting in a single room with a single computer. Windows wasn't even a thing then. The initial software was on a DOS-based system where you typed everything in and then you flipped over and you could see an image and then you flip back and you type and you flip back and forth. This industry has come so far, so fast, and it's continuing to evolve over the years. So what I wanted to talk about is how our products have tried to modify themselves to fit the market and where we're going, and also assist you a little bit in terms of where the industry is going and where you might see yourself fit in with. So Catalyst, we're about making actionable Earth information intelligence available to decision makers, whether that be through a software, whether that be through data. Over the last 30 plus years, 40 plus years of the company, we've developed over 750 different algorithms across multiple disciplines to work with image data. From the most basic pixel that comes out of a sensor in the sky to a map that you see online. We've tried to be cross-platform, across everything, desktops, on-prem, server distributed, cloud agnostic. We work with all cloud providers now. And we try and bring the required imagery to the client in partnership with many image providers. So in the current day and state of the industry, we sort of see two main segments that we focus on. One is the image processing industry. There are satellites going up every day. The industry started out as a really, specialized industry. Governments could put satellites up. It cost, hundreds of millions of dollars to do it. There were only space flights going up that could launch satellites once a year, once every 5 years, not very often. Nowadays, SpaceX puts a rocket up every other day, and they launch small sats, which are much smaller, much cheaper, much easier to get up. So the industry has gone from a very specialized one, dealing with governments, dealing with a very small group of people, to everybody looks at a satellite image every day. Google maps you every day somewhere, right? So what we try and do on that side is we have partnered with a lot of those imagery providers. We are the backbone for them to deliver data to you. On the other side of that is we look at operational risk management and how to take EO, Earth observation data, and other data together to generate information for decision makers. So we'll talk a little bit about both of those sides of the coin. Catalyst Professional is our basic desktop suite. If you're learning here at York University, you're using Catalyst Professional. That has access to our 750 algorithms. You can use them any way you want to create a workflow to do whatever you want to do with satellite imagery. That's the backbone of everything, right? Learning how those things fit together and how to do something with imagery is the start. You can view data, you can look at it, you can analyze data any way you want. We have interactive environments for research and testing. We also have modeling and Python environments for automation. So how do you take that to the next level? You automate a process. You start with 5 functions, you put them together to make one workflow. What's the next level? Governments wanted to produce a whole lot of data over their entire countries. Create base maps, create elevation models, generate analysis-ready data that they can look at and make decisions from. So we created a system called Catalyst Enterprise. It takes specific workflows that we design and allows users to use those in a system that they could scale up over multiple systems, not a single computer, with a backbone environment of multi-computers. So high performance, optimized for quality, optimized for speed, does high volume data. But it's still an on-premise system. You still need a backbone of disks and drives and computers to run it on. The value of that is great. It was industry leading at the time, reduced the risk, it allowed you to scale up to generate a lot of data. We still sell that today as subscription. We now actually have expanded it to work with cloud systems, so you can have your data on the cloud and not on your own on-prem system. There's business sides for both of them. A lot of governments in a lot of places, they don't want people looking at their data, so they're not going to use cloud. But the industry has moved now to where did we take that? Well, we've got all these building blocks, 750 algorithms. We've spent a good deal of time over the last 5 years taking what we designed and enabling it for the cloud. Now I can move those pieces anywhere and I can use those pieces anywhere. So we've now optimized our system for processing on the cloud, and you can take any one of those functions and you can run it on data in the cloud. How do we do that? Standardized building blocks, works on any operating system. There's no installation. You just throw data next to the data. How do we do it? Consumption-based. Each image you put through that costs you something. How much? Depends on the size of the image. Every function has a value. You run them through. We charge you for the amount of data that you actually put through the system. You don't have to pay $100,000 up front to get all this work. You pay as you use it. So the benefits of this, one of the biggest benefits is you don't have to move data anymore. One of the biggest things in this industry, as I said, satellite's going up every day. 40 years plus of imagery has been generated. That's a lot of data. If you got to move it from here to here so that I can work with it here, you need a lot of disk, you need a lot of bandwidth, you've got to move the data, it takes a long time. As you process, you generate more products, data increase. We move the process to the data now on the cloud. That allows you to scale up limitless, right? You can add machines to the system and run in parallel. It also gives you the ability to predict your costs as you know how much imagery you want to put through the system. So on the small sat side of things, this is where we've played a lot lately. We've partnered with numerous of these small sat customers to deliver to them automated scalable pipelines. They start with the data right off the satellite. They produce you a data set that you buy that's already mapped to the ground that you can then apply to your application. So we process hundreds of thousands of images a day for these people. Basics of taking their data and their cameras, aligning all the different bands in the stack, modeling them, collecting ground control, and accurately correcting that data to the ground, using reference imagery and other data that you need. Here's an example. I have a 10,000 satellite image project. I don't have a software solution. I have 2 servers I can use. It takes about 5 minutes to run an image through this workflow, and I can deliver to a customer. The current status quo is I need to figure out how much hardware I need, what software I'm going to use. I got to pick the cost. I got to purchase licenses. I got to allocate hardware to that project. I got to install. I got to learn. I got to build the workflow. Then I got to download the data from the server, however much it is. In this case, 12 hours to download those 10,000 images. I then can process on my 2 servers about 10 images in parallel. It takes about 3.5 days to process all those data sets. And then I transfer the files back to the client. I got to move the data again. 3.5 days, 5.5 days. I can't see for the thing. I think it's 5.5 days. Nowadays with onboard, I can register. I get my exact price based on the data I'm putting through. I still have to learn it. I still have to build the workflow, same cost. I can initialize a whole series of microservices in the cloud. It takes about less than a minute. I can process those 10,000 images at the same time in parallel. It takes 5 minutes. I can deliver to the client in 12 hours. That process takes 19 hours versus days. So scalability of onboard. Catalyst Onboard is that product. Near real-time scaling, parallel processing on the cloud, charge per image. Some of the image providers that we work with, we've worked with a lot of these companies since, NASA, Airbus have been around a long time. We've worked with them many, many years. Also many of the new sort of players, the planets, the Satellogics, new small sat sensors. Microsoft Planetary Computer. Microsoft came to us with this problem. We've got all the Sentinel-1 image archive SAR data. It's a platform hosting large volumes of EO data relating for climate use, land use, biodiversity, all that sort of stuff. This site improves accessibility to free EO data, right, for analysis. We're under contract with them. We've produced their Sentinel-1 archive using our technology, radiometric terrain correction. So that brings it to the ground. It turns a radar image into a ground image. Yeah, so they wanted to do 2 million scenes in 3 weeks. They wanted to deliver that fast to their client, right? Greater than 2 million image, we processed that archive in 3 weeks. We used 25 simultaneous cores in the Azure environment. 99.9 of those images passed inspection. And now we're processing every day 17,000 images for them, constantly updating the archive. So we're still in this contract. We were able to scale up using onboard. And we still have authorization when needed to ramp up to 100,000 cores and actually run fast projects for them. So if you go on Microsoft Planetary Computer, all the Sentinel-1 archive that there was produced using our tools. So that's the image processing side. So much data out there, many different ways for us to play with that data, but mainly now our focus is on getting into image providers, working with them to deliver data that consumers use. On the other side of the coin, Catalyst Insights. This is our newest sort of work into the vertical market. Software as a service, one side. The biggest thing now is data as a service. We had some of this discussion at lunchtime in the room. There's a lot of people in a lot of different industries that want to use geospatial data, don't really know they're using geospatial data. Right? They just want the data. I want to know about my dam here. I want to know about my power lines. I want to know about, specific features that they're worried about. Insurance companies, mining companies, and so on. They really just want the data. They're not that worried about the spatial part of it. They are because they want to know if there's issues, but they know it's here. I just want to click on it and see information about it. So that's where Insights comes into play. I talked about image reconstruction and orthorectification, and this is now looking at the downstream part of it, analysis of the data and delivering data to customers. Insights can play in a lot of different markets: infrastructure, civil transportation, natural resources, financial services, emergency response, all kinds of different industries that this kind of thing plays into. All these people are using spatial data. So what we provide is a web-based information system that will give them actionable insights from the Earth data. So trying to shift the status quo. So let's talk about traditional mining displacement discussions. How much is the ground moving in a certain location? Using satellite data, you can calculate the displacement. Right now, most companies on things like mines have ground-based instruments to measure how much the ground is moving in that spot. You have to deploy those. They're costly to deploy and to maintain, and they only, collect points here, here, here. They don't do a lot. From a satellite, we can do the same thing. Cost is lower by an order of magnitude. I can take pictures. I can generate imagery and generate information. I can do it over a larger area faster. I can generate a lot more points. And we've done a lot of tests, high accuracy. It's in agreement with the ground measurements, so we know it's accurate. So this applies to a lot of different critical infrastructure projects. Power lines, airports, buildings, roads, bridges, railroads, all these things that if the ground moves, causes them problems. For example, here's a simple bridge example. Now, this bridge was built in 2016 at a cost of 10 million. They were collecting ground leveling points 4 times a year at the abutments of the bridge, so they were only collecting 4 points a year. 4 points, 1,600 observations per year. With a satellite, we can generate 550 times more points, give them more information about that area. On a mine, same thing, right? Near real-time monitoring helps mining organizations and regulators make better risk decisions, right? Reduce the risk of catastrophic events, help them to monitor over time to see if there's change, and reduce their downtime. On the urban side, a lot of stuff over the last little while on the insurance side around tunneling, building subways, building roads, building rapid transit, road failures. All of these things can be measured using satellite data over time. Here's a project in Australia. This was in Sydney, the largest road tunnel infrastructure project. And the people in the areas around here were complaining that they were having issues, the people that lived there. Landowners were complaining about ground moving causing damage to their homes and their infrastructure. The project owner said, oh, no, it's not us. It's the contractors. The contractor said, no, it's not us. It's not the problem. The analysis we did of that area along there, collecting all those points, and then you can click on any point and see the stability of the land and then a failure in 2021, right around the time of the tunnel. Same up top. So you can measure any spot along that tunnel line and you can see the potential. Right? Gives them more information. So this actually information is helping those homeowners, showing that the subsidence is occurring following the path of the tunnel. Doesn't guarantee it's because of the tunnel, but it certainly is evidence that they can use. So that's critical infrastructure. Also on vegetation management side of things. For hydro companies, they go along their power lines and they have to know when they need to trim, right? Trees, so that when natural disasters happen, windstorms, blow branches into the power lines, knock out power. So they generally do that every 3 to 8 years at a regular cadence. This has been their standard process, right? I do this, I check for growth, disease development, can outpace that cadence. Condition-based, we can actually take a look at the vegetation along those power lines and identify if there's any risk earlier, right? So we are currently doing a project with St. John Energy, and to look at all of their power lines, their entire corridor, using satellite imagery, using their utility map network data, using environmental map data, extracting the height of the trees and extracting the trees, checking and doing a vegetation health, and then creating a risk model that shows them and tells them, maybe we should go check that site first, even though it may not have been, for another 3 years on the cadence. Right? So this allows them to be a little more accurate and a little more active in terms of getting to places where there might be a problem sooner. Lastly, I'll talk a little bit about defense applications, following on from our friends from the forces. But on the defense side, satellite imagery plays a role in all of these areas: maritime monitoring, border monitoring, vehicles, air bases, everything. On the ship detection side, monitoring ports, channels, trying to identify dark vessels, things that aren't supposed to be there. There's lots of commercial available data on ships, but there are other ships, right, hiding. So we've created automatic workflows that will plug into the system, download imagery, do the workflow, generate maps. You can identify if there's something there that shouldn't be there. So from my perspective, in 30 plus years, I've gone from very few customers to a whole lot of customers. The business has changed, the technology has changed. The basics of learning GIS, like here, haven't changed. You still need the knowledge, you still need the understanding of GIS. The tools, there are lots of tools. Like we know, we've worked with Esri, we've worked with other companies. We're not alone in this business. There's lots of different projects that need lots of data and lots of tech. But this business for me, 30 plus years, from a basic hi, I know how to run this function, to applying tech to specific projects and algorithms, to, it's been a great ride of 30 years. I would wish it to anybody, right? So if you're looking for a career, this is a great place to go. I don't know what the next 30 years holds, right? We've gone from, small window of opportunity to large window and lots of tech. I don't know where it goes next, but you should be excited about that if you want to get into this business.
Question.
Yes.
So for young people here, right, if they want to get into that, based on your years of experience, what do you think they should get into as a first job? It's hard to get into where you are now,
Sure.
So to start off, where do you recommend that they should start off?
Basic image processing, map making work that many companies are doing. There was a question this morning about, what are the jobs that are available? Mapping technicians, certainly, business analysts at most companies now have to take geospatial into, and you can start small. As I said, I started just answering phones and support. I haven't left PCI in 30 years, but I haven't done the same job for 30 years, right? I've been on the marketing side. If you're interested in how to put things together, demos together and do work, I've done that. I've been able to do product management and actually define what we do as a company and what we deliver to our customers, designing interfaces, designing workflows, delivering. It all starts from their basic GIS analyst role, right? Understanding geospatial data and understanding how to use it.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, thank you so much, Peter. And now to bring it home, we have our student panelists. So I don't know, do you guys want to sit up here? Because this is a bit more.
Try to see if the camera picks this.
Yeah, this is a little bit more of a talk show style. So yeah, why don't you guys? Although I think you each are showing slides.
Yes.
So I'll introduce you all. Is our third student? Oh yes, yeah. Do I pronounce it Mireille? Okay, awesome. So we have Morel James from environmental science. We have Kyle Derry from geography, and we have Shweta Parajuli from geography. Okay, so you guys are each going to talk for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to ask you questions like your talk show host. So when you're done, you sit back down, and I'll ask you guys questions. Okay. Who's going first? Okay, awesome. What do you do?
I'm the GIS.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. So I'm going to try and give you my 5-minute elevator pitch on my research that I'm working on here, which is reimagining stormwater management systems in the Greater Toronto Area with what's something called blue-green infrastructure, which might be something that not a lot of people are familiar with. So I want to start with just calling attention to or asking a question. How many people know somebody or have had their own basements flood? How many times has that happened, right? I see a lot of hands. How many times when you're commuting, when you're trying to get somewhere and you find there's flooding on the Don Valley Parkway or there's flooding on the Union Station and you can't get anywhere now. Now your whole day is disrupted. It happens quite often and quite frequently. We see it happening in 2018. We see it happening in 2016. These are pictures that were taken relatively recently. And as you can see, it's anything but tame. We see flooding that does damage not only to the infrastructure that's in place, but also to the lives and the commuting and the time of people that need to use these services, right? So when we talk about the systems that are in place, we have gray infrastructure, which when I say gray, I'm referring to pipes and concretes and catch basins and things like that that are kind of placed around the city that have either been implemented as old as 1950s or a little bit later on in the 90s and 80s. But when I say combined sewer systems, it's where we're talking about the sewer systems that are transporting both wastewater and stormwater at the same time. These are typically in older parts of the city. And when I say separated sewer systems, I'm talking about sewer systems that are transporting wastewater in one separate pipe system and stormwater in another. And these are typically found in the new kind of more modernly, more newer, updated and developed parts of the city. So when we have sort of this patchwork of design, we have a opportunity to look at the vulnerability of certain places versus others, and at what sort of solutions we can talk about that could maybe be applied in a wide variety of different ways. And so this is where I come up with blue-green infrastructure. Now, blue-green infrastructure, it's blue, deals with water, deals with stormwater in particular, and green usually has to do with some sort of natural economic or ecological processes that go along with it. It's a combination of engineering and ecological services that can be implemented in different ways. So you can have something like this, which would be a vegetated swale. You can have options like this, which would be green roofs, things that can deal with, now when the rain falls on the roofs, we have ways of dealing with it there. Or we can have something like this, a dry pond, right? Where it remains dry for most of the time, but then when rain events happen, it starts to fill up, and you'll notice right around here, I'll point at it instead. Right here, there's a raise between the lowest part of the dry pond and to the entrance up to the storm sewer. This is because it can fill up, and that dry pond actually then becomes inundated with water. And when it gets past that point, it enters the system that way. So when we talk about this, you'll notice that they're pretty large. They're pretty big. A lot of times these storm ponds and dry ponds take up a lot of space. But we're going to look at areas like Union Station, where, as you just saw with those photos, floods fairly often. How are we going to implement something like this or update the sewer systems that are in place? Updating the sewer systems that are underground are going to be time consuming. It's going to be costly. It's going to be disruptive, and it's going to be really difficult to do so. But what if we could implement stormwater systems, blue-green infrastructure in areas like areas that can be pointed out here in small, individually scalable different ways? So instead of having one large one off to the side that takes a lot of time and space, we can now implement much smaller iterations of this, but still have a network of effect in areas like this. So Union Station is a really excellent example. There's no space. Where are you going to put these aspects? Well, we're going to try and see if there's an effective way to make them smaller and scalable to still be implemented in places such as this. And in order to do that, I have taken a couple of places around the GTA that are dealing with or have dealt with floods in the past. This is Green Park Crescent over in Mississauga, right up by the 403. And they have faced floods even last year. A number of these houses had basement floodings in the last couple of years. And the way that I start to analyze this is I start looking at things like digital elevation models, where I can take slopes, I can take elevation points to say, okay, these blue arrows here are going to represent which way the water's flowing when it falls on the road. So if I can say, okay, I know where the water's coming from, I know where it's going to, now I can start to say, okay, let's start running simulations here. I look at things like supervised maximum likelihood classification that allow me to create images such as this, where now I can calculate the percentages of what is a permeable surface and what is an impermeable surface. So now I can start running that and implementing that into my simulations as well. And ultimately, instead of having something like this, where these green spaces here, these green squares are representing things like dry ponds or vegetated swales, large assets that can be implemented, we can start looking into systems like this, where now they're smaller, they can be spread out, but have an interconnected network effect. So ultimately, site-specific, individually scaled urban planning with regard to stormwater management is a huge key to creating a more resilient city. And having these smaller scale blue-green infrastructure assets is one step to do that. And I aim to find that with my research and simulations. Thanks.
Why don't we just cycle up? Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Merle James, and I am a fourth year environmental science student here at UC. And I'm here to present to you on my current research thesis. I first started this project through the Environmental Urban Change Undergraduate Research Award, which I received throughout the summer. And right now I'm sort of expanding on this research through my current undergraduate honors thesis. Essentially, I am looking at calculating and quantifying the downstream hydraulic geometry of the Black Creek River Basin here in Toronto. And GIS is sort of helping me to support and improve my findings, my fieldwork findings thus far, and to be able to understand the creek at a watershed scale. So just a brief introduction into my study site and my study area. Here you can see that I have a map of the Black Creek River watershed. And essentially the Black Creek is a tributary of the Humber River. It flows from Northern Vaughan and Toronto all the way into the Humber River, all the way into the Humber River. And over the summer, I sort of looked at 12 reaches along the creek, for which I calculated the downstream hydraulic geometry. So I looked at the width, velocity, and depth, and as well as calculated the discharge along the creek. Essentially, the aim of my project is to interpret the downstream hydraulic geometry, and I'm doing so by identifying and estimating the backflow and channel forming discharges, looking at the measurements of the downstream hydraulic geometry, analyzing those measurements, and of course, looking at how the landscape sort of controls the river and the way in which it behaves. For further context, the Black Creek River to the Northern Vaughan area is extremely developed and very urbanized. And so for the field work, I recognize that from midstream to the downstream areas of the river, it is very channelized, lots of culverts, and a lot of channel straightening is taking place as we go downstream. Okay. So overall, GIS is going to help me to sort of understand the bigger forces that shape the creek and the surrounding land use, and how does that sort of connect with the hydraulic measurements that I calculated in the field. And here is a map of using geospatial data. I was able to plot the land use in the surrounding area of the Black Creek River Basin. And so from Northern Vaughan, you can sort of see the vegetation. There's a lot of vegetation taking place at the source of the river, whereas as soon as we begin to go downstream, so from the midsections to the end of the river where it flows into Humber River, there is a lot more built up of areas. So there's more infrastructure and less vegetation, right? And so that sort of correlates with a lot of my preliminary results that I've already found, where when I measured width, depth, and velocity against discharge as we go downstream, I've seen that the width and depth of the river barely increases as we go downstream. It doesn't increase at all or change with discharge, whereas velocity continues to increase. So it just shows that the river is more hydraulically efficient, but it does not change as we go downstream. And looking at this map, we can sort of make assumptions to say that, okay, maybe because there is a lot more infrastructure and it's more developed as we go downstream, that could be preventing the river from further expanding as a natural alluvial river would, right? And so this is sort of what GIS is also helping me to further support my findings through my fieldwork, as well as I'm going to use DEM to find the slope of the Black Creek River. And through that, I can basically calculate my stream power. And stream power will essentially tell me how the stream is able to move its sediments downstream and how would that change the grain size you would find from the source and lower downstream as well. Again, it gives more insights into land use and why we see a difference in the width and the depth if we do downstream. It also supports my next steps for the project. So if you want to look into stream restoration, GIS will further help support that. So overall, the field work, it just gives me a bit of insight into what the river has been showing at the different reaches of the stream. And GIS itself will sort of give me more of a wholesome look as to the entire watershed and how land use, in a sense, will sort of have an impact or affect the hydraulic geometry measurements of the creek. So that's really all I have. If you all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yes, go forward.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Shweta Parazuli, second year master's student here at York University in Department of Geography. And today I'm very happy to share you all my research. We have heard all about the greenhouse gases emission, especially carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And we consider forest to be a very easy solution that it can absorb the carbon from the atmosphere. But do we know how much carbon this forest store, or how we measure these carbon stored by the forest? Let me tell you, there are two accurate ways of estimating this stored carbon. First is to fell each tree from the forest and weigh them to get their biomass. Not practical. Second option, we go inside the forest, measure individual trees and get their structural information and get their biomass using biomass allometric equation. But it's not always practical, right? Thanks to remote sensing techniques that now we are able to get this information without having to go inside the forest. We're using different spectral structural information to get the biomass. But when we are up above the canopy and when we are looking from up above, we tend to miss what's happening beneath the canopy, especially those surrounding the soil. But there is a link we can exploit, and that's leaf fall. Okay, so leaf fall falls from the foliage or the tree, input organic carbon to the soil. So we have this opportunity that if we can understand about the foliage biomass and leaf fall, we have an opportunity to understand about the soil carbon budget that is the input from leaf litter fall. So I asked two simple questions. Can we estimate how much of the carbon is going into the soil without having to measure each tree going into the forest? Can remote sensing help us make these estimates? So for this, I'm using a powerful light detection and ranging, which is an active remote sensing. Thanks to Connie, who already went, but she helped a lot for us to know about what LiDAR is and how much details we can get from the LiDAR. It has a power to penetrate through the canopy to give us a vertical structural information of the forest. So I'm using this information from the LiDAR, that is, I'm using crown diameter and height information from LiDAR in combination with the spectral information, and I'm exploiting the relationship between the foliage and leaf fall, finally understanding about the soil carbon budget, for which I have been to the field in Borden, which is near Angus, Ontario, and I'm getting the leaf fall data collected to establish a foliage biomass and leaf fall relationship, which I'm relating to with the remote sensing data, finally trying to understand if we can get the information of soil carbon budget that is input from the remote sensing data. All in all I'm trying to do is using the laser or LiDAR up from the canopy to get the information of what's happening beneath without having to do the extensive field work. Thank you.
So why don't I take questions from the audience first of any of these three presentations? And if you don't have any, then I'll start asking mine. Okay. So, well, I think we should ask, because I think some people in the audience have sort of asked me, they're wondering what your future plans are after graduation. So why don't we start with that?
There we go.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll start. So, I mean, after graduation, I'm really looking for that badge of credibility to kind of increase my marketability in the job market. It's a nightmare out there, as I'm sure many of you are aware. And walking out with a master's of science is going to be super helpful, but there's also the hope of maybe implementing this research that I'm doing. I believe there's a really strong opportunity to have these sort of scalable opportunities where you can implement environmental services and blue-green infrastructure in places to mitigate flooding that we hear about all too often. In places in Toronto, like in the Union Station areas or in Mississauga, I think there's a real opportunity for that. So having connections with TRCA and having ways to implement that, I think would be awesome.
Okay, yeah, I have similar opinion as Kyle. I also plan to enter into a job market because as of now, I have been to academics, I have worked in the research inside the academic, but I want to try explore the job market, what's happening actually inside in the industry, and I want to work for the Earth observation and monitoring. That's my goal. I want to work and have gain some work experience.
For me, I'm currently my undergraduate degree, so I want to be able to further my studies in geography. And I'm pretty interested in fluvial geomorphology, so I kind of want to continue building on what I'm doing right now, continue building on my research. I want to continue to study urban watersheds as well, and to just sort of look at those variables and see if it compares to Black Creek. So that's kind of where my interest is right.
Question from the audience.
So I'd say I have a question that each of you can answer, and you've been involved in your project for some time now. What's the most challenging aspect of the sort of nut that you're trying to crack?
I think definitely, at least from my perspective, I mentioned I'm using simulations and I'm using a software called Stormwater Management Modeler. It's called or SWIM for short. And there's always something you can tweak. And if you tweak it just a tiny bit, suddenly you have an entirely different output. So finding the right kind of outputs in my work to kind of answer the questions I'm looking for is definitely part of it. Yeah, I think that would probably be the most challenging part. Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you a scenario.
Sure.
So what's gonna happen is, and this is speaking from 20 years in the GIS industry as well as in the job market in general. There's many multiple agencies you can get into right now. However, because you have zero actual working experience, most likely you will have to start with simple GIS jobs like data collection, let's just say. And let's say you go into either a local municipality or water utility or whichever, which we are hiring every year for entry GIS jobs. And you find that what you've researched is so far away from what the client has had, okay? Because don't forget, when you're in the academic world, you have access to all of our advanced technology, so you can play your heart out. But once you get to a job set at a customer side, they may have one desktop license or one pro license. So with one pro license, or with one RGS online license, what can you make? What can you innovate? What can you do? That's a question for both of you. Ready to go into the market? For you, it's just more food for thought for down the road when you're ready to get into the market. But
yeah, I think
I want to hear from you guys.
I've had some talk with I'm blanking on the name of the consulting company, but that is doing the work at the southern end of Toronto, where they're doing the stormwater management construction down by Lake Ontario there. And that's one application where it's a real world job that's going on. And they're looking for people to do that sort of GIS analysis of whether that's berm height and whether that's running simulations to see if that's going to be effective or things like that. And I think, if they have the single license and that's all they have to do, then it may be more of a team effort. It might be more of a conversation between not just myself, but other industries or in other departments within that certain company. I think being able to learn to innovate and work with what you have is kind of really important. But it really is kind of at the time of the work site, right? What I'm working with, who I'm working with, what sort of licenses are we even talking about in the first place? And if just speaking from my own research, SWIM is open source, it's free, so you can use, anybody can take that, right? It's just a matter of knowing how to use it, I think. So I don't know if that kind of answered your question.
No, it's just more preparing for yourself. I don't have the answers to
Oh, I see.
that. It's just, I'm asking you to make you think about
Sure.
what situation you might get into when you actually get into a job site,
Sure.
right? One more from you.
Yeah, actually, yes, I'm actually open to like entry level jobs. I'm open to that and I'm open to learn. And I think that the experience that I have gained from my academics, I think it will help me, to grow inside that company. I think as of now, because I know how much difficult it is to get that job, I think if I can enter into the platform that I'm interested in, I believe that the skill that I've learned that I can, get promoted or, step up from that entry level. So.
So Morel and Shweta also maybe answer Tarmo's question about what your biggest intellectual challenge. Why don't you take that first?
Yeah, my challenge, I would say, not that I'm expecting, but I probably dealt with already would have been the field work. So collecting that data and just hoping, because I only did along 12 bridges along the creek, right? Hoping that that is a good enough representation of the hydrogeometry of the Black Creek in a sense, right? And so I'm hoping to use, I'm hoping that with using GIS that it will further like help support the measurements that I already collected. But I think for me, it's more or less hoping that it's a proper representation of what the creek actually is doing, right? In terms of urbanization and in terms of how it's sort of changing as a post-function.
For me, trying to find out what's correct. Because the definition of correct in research, I believe it depends on, what you're trying to find out. And for me, I keep reading literatures and I try to like adopt what they are trying to do. And then next day I read another literature and okay, I think that's better. So trying to find out what actually is a correct path. And trying to be, confident on your process, I think was the most challenging. And I would also say that the field work itself, it was very challenging part to go inside the forest in summer with all the mosquitoes and bugs. And also in the winter with all the snow. Yeah, that's the rest difficult part.
Okay, I'll ask another one. I'd like to ask you, what advice would you give someone considering studying in your program at York 2? Do you want to go? Let's go this way.
Okay, for anybody who is interested in studying environmental sciences, I would say go for it. It provides you with like a best of both worlds in a sense, because you get to understand the science behind all of the processes that sort of shape the earth, as well as you get that hands-on experience, right? And that real world experience throughout the degree. I will also say a piece of advice would be to talk to your professors, be involved, put yourself out there, because that's how you get that's how you sort of get access to those of the opportunities that the faculty offer. And yeah, just be present and try your best to sort of enhance your student experience by becoming involved and sort of being present. And I will say I don't like to call all faculty a small faculty, but I would say it's very close knit. And so you have that opportunity to have that one-on-one connection with your professors and classmates. And so it just creates a better learning environment in general. So I would encourage anybody to join UC and study environmental science as well.
Same here, yeah. I would say if you're coming as an undergrad in this faculty, then I would say be open to learn, because this discipline itself is multidisciplinary. You have an opportunity to blend in different disciplines, like different factors, and you may never know which discipline or which factors will like pull you. So I would say if you are coming as an undergrad, be open, build a good relationship with your professors, and if there are any groups like students group, get involved. And if you're coming as a graduate student, I would say at least have a broad, broad idea of what you want to do, so you can like fix it and have like one key to get into.
Mhm. Yeah, I echo those sentiments as well. I mean, I did my undergrad here at York in environmental studies prior to EUC becoming coming into being. And you choose the faculty that you want to be. Like choose where you want to be, especially like you guys were saying that EUC provides so much opportunity to interact with your professors, other professors from other faculties. It is a close knit group of people. And I mean, I was fortunate enough to interact with a lot of different professors here. I was very close with Gail Fraser when I was in my undergrad. And when I connected with her about my master's program, she goes, "You want Tarmo as your supervisor?" And and she was 100% correct. And that because she was able to connect me with people, get the brownie points, but because she was able to connect me with people that she felt was strong with what I was looking for. And I knew I wanted to come back here after my undergrad. I chose the right place to be. So knowing what you want before you make that ever important decision to go to a certain faculty will make you joining this one all the more successful. Choose the courses you want to go to, talk to the people you want to talk to, and really, dive head first.
Now, do you guys want to ask anyone? Because it seems like almost everybody left.
Yeah.
Is an expert, actually. So I thought maybe you guys might want to ask somebody who's here anything.
Well, I might want to follow up our conversation. You were having just a little bit.
The reason why I asked that was the last time I went to another university's the career network.
Yeah.
That was asked me multiple times. She said, "Alice, when I was at University of X, I have advanced technology. I can use all these tools, but when I come to the city of X, they have a basic desktop. What am I going to do with a basic desktop?" I was like, "Very imagination, girl." So I said, "But utilize all the 20 core apps in ArcGIS Online. There's so many stuff in there. So combine your desktop knowledge, your analytical skill, and your abstract thinking. Be innovative and apply the problems at hand." That's what I'm trying to get at, right? And so because that's what's going to happen to you. Like you have all this wonderful, amazing research. I wish that could be used today. I wish that's somehow being used, but it's not. And it's for a particular reason. It could be political reason, economical, or multiple reasons. But we need you to be in those positions to use your amazing brain to figure out what's happening and somehow marry the two and come up with a new solution.
For sure.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, don't get too
100%.
married to your research paper.
100%.
Right? And be adaptive. And I
Yeah.
know GIS people are very adaptive and very collaborative, so I think it's great.
Yeah, I think, I'm in a bit of a unique situation where I worked for Stantec on the Coastal GasLink project as an environmental technologist.
Amazing.
And then followed and worked with CBRE as a health and safety inspector. So
You got that experience.
I got a little bit, yeah, and then coming back and saying, okay, I started this research when I was doing my college diploma and saying I want to continue with it, kind of provided this opportunity for me to kind of push this envelope a little further.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's 100% like, I'm not gonna be able to get my degree here and then walk over to the TRCA and go, here you go, let's make it happen,
Yes.
So you're right, you're 100% correct. And I think, that first step is to start working on other things that are already happening and then start to kind of see if I can get that influence to push it forward. So I like that, so thanks.
I have a thought. I have a question for experts here too, because as a teacher, I do wonder about this balance between preparing them for the limitations of the real world versus actually letting them soar and do all kinds of things they could only do at university.
You do both.
But how do I
You have to have
50,
both.
50-50?
Well, you have to, because I went to school for mathematics. So I'm using everything I'm learning from university, which I didn't think I would ever use. I'm using my golden circle abstract thinking to pitch to senior management, because guess what? They don't care about GIS. They don't care about technology. They care about the partnership and the value in the business. So how do you make sense of that abstractly thinking? So I'm literally using my algebra skill set only now, but I wasn't using it with my first job. You see, so as you get deeper into your industry, you actually go back to your undergrad abstract thinking or whatever your undergrad degree is. So what you have right now, this dream that you have, it will become true. It took me, 20 years to get me where I am, but it'll be faster because the technology is advancing quickly and AI. You might get to where you want to be like 3 years or 5 years, right? So what I'm saying is keep your dream, just kind of like, get a little closer to your dream. And that's what it's all about, right?
So, what do you think? This is cutting off my own nose to sweat my face. But the important part is not tech, right? The important part is the concept of what you're learning and how you're using the technology, right? So the important part is how do you deliver on a project? The steps you do. Could be my tech, could be your tech, could be open source tech. And in today's day and age, there's a lot you can do with open source tech, right? So the important part is just the concept of what you're doing and what you can do with GIS data, geospatial data in general, whether it be LiDAR, whether it be imagery, whether it be points and lines and coordinates, right? So it's the concepts, and you can apply those to anything in any industry these days. So. But use their software and use our software.
I have friends who work at PCI, who worked with us, who work somewhere else, and work with the government or the customer side. What I'm saying is if you have geo's skill set, this career is really long. And we're all friends. We all know each other from somewhere before. I've worked with people at PCI before. So it's one big happy family, right? We're all trying to do our little piece to make this world better at the end of the day.
To even wrap it back, I went to school 35, 40 years ago. There was no GIS. When I went to geography, it was surveying, and there was no GIS.
There's a book that I teach by Ian McCard, and he talks about how you can use transparent slides and put them on top of each other. Wow. 1960.
What did I do? As a geographer, when I went to school, I loved maps and I learned computers. But they weren't combined when I went to school. When I finally found the GIS program, I graduated like about 2 years finding myself. And then I found a program that, that's it. So just the tech is out there to do so many things now.
Right, we want to get some.
I was gonna say, I think one of the big things is education, but the network that you build. So when I worked with Monday, gentleman by the name of Bob here, he used to work at Port Region, another municipality. He hosts a geomatics meetup once a month, and that's actually Monday at Say Black, Front Street, Toronto. I can give you that. Oh, you know about it. It's good. Like sometimes you get a lot of industry people, sometimes you get a lot of. But it is the standard question: how did you break into GIS? And growing through the industry and so on, a big part was also expanding your network and growing that with decision makers of companies and getting your name out there and talking to those people. Those are some big help you used to get into. So Monday, if you are doing nothing and you have your way down to downtown.
We're grad students, we're never doing nothing.
But those are great, like those events and
Yeah.
that you get to fantastic. I've worked out, I've seen, just some relationships and I was like, hey, I know that there's an opening here. Let me just throw your resume over there and it's worked.
What time is that at?
It's at 7 p.m.
Oh, do you have to register?
I never do. I just
You're an Esri paper.
Oh, it's not an Esri thing.
I'm not a big.
There's a lot of X as too.
There's actually more Esri but I can share that with you.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so Martin, why don't you take the last comment? We'll close the kind of formal part of this, and then we can still hang out. We have some time in the room, and people can make more connections and treat it almost like a geomatics meetup, or if you will. Yeah.
Well, my question is, basically a follow-up on the one that you asked. I wanted to ask our experts that are here, but also our students. On the one side, speaking from thinking about our GIS, geomatics, remote sensing training in a program here, I wanted to ask what you see from people that are graduating from such programs that we might be able to strengthen. Would it be things like training in Python programming or project management or additional more advanced statistics like spatial statistics, things like that? Is there something that you see coming out of schools that you think could be stronger in the candidates that you're seeing for this kind of training? And on the student side, is there something that our program might be able to offer you that you think you needed to look elsewhere for, or that you want to further develop that we don't have, that we could potentially build into the program? I'll open that up, both sides of that.
I can pitch in like a lot of the geomatics ignition, like we do map production, but we also have a lot of workflows that get repetitive that we can automate. So anytime someone comes in and they have coding background, we usually jump on that. And it's so critical, and it's a language too that I want to learn myself, because it makes your workflow so much easier and it's so valuable. So I wish it's because I come from I did environmental sciences at Concordia University, so that's my background. And I did coding there, but it wasn't Python. It wasn't necessarily directly correlated to like ArcGIS Pro or whatever scripting. So coding for me was a major one.
So any kind of training in computer programming.
Yeah, well, yes, but yeah, probably Python.
Python is the basis of everything.
Yeah. Python especially.
There used to be a lot more, should we learn C? Should I learn?
That was Python.
But it's all just Python.
To add on the coding thing, I mean, I have experience with C++ and some JavaScript and things like that, and we just finished an R coding course recently. And it's that thought process, you have to think a little differently, you have to tweak your brain a little bit to be able to speak to the computer, so to speak, to get it to do what you want to do and have that code work the way you want. That thought process, yeah, coding is super important. I agree 100%.
But anytime that there's a new geo that comes in, we're like, I have the background in like gaming coding, we're like, come here.
Yeah.
Me too.
And I think that's the other thing, most data that you get nowadays with some sort of API that you can access. So if there's, it's certainly a recommendation.
Yeah, to have IT and GIS.
Understanding on, and for us, we hire a lot of engineers that don't know remote sensing and GIS. Or we hire GIS remote sensing people that don't have a lot of engineering and programming background. The sweet spot is that spot in the middle, and we've got a gentleman who started chief scientist now, who's been in the industry since basically I started in 1982. And he's got that, right? And it's so hard to find.
Yeah, so double down on that because of two things, the new partnership between Esri and Autodesk. Before they were kind of fighting, now they have a partnership, everybody knows their lanes. Everybody just be friends now, so there's a lot more opportunity. We have a whole new department called AEC dedicated for construction, engineering, and architecture firms, which means we're doing all business development, which means we'll have a lot of clients, which means they're gonna be able to hire people who have both engineering skill set and GIS. So if you can like lean towards engineering classes or somehow like, I don't know, talk to engineering professors or be friends with them and, have a common course that people can take both or something.
I don't think engineers have any friends.
I can't say that. I understand they have, the reason why they are the way they are is because they have to think that way, because they have to think about the risk. Their mind goes to risk right away. So because of that, because if they fail, the whole bridge falls down, right? People die. So they have to think about risk, right? So in order to get them to think, what if, a little bit wider, it's harder. So you have to talk to them in a way that instead of asking what, say, if would you do this, what's the least amount of risk given this? You gotta speak like that. Then he can dream a little bit, then he knows he's not a threat, right? Because if he thinks he's a threat, he's going, no, absolutely not. Whatever you're thinking, not gonna go. I said, okay, but what if I have this and this and this within these parameters? How do you think we're gonna make this
We
work?
need a psychologist as well.
I'm married to an engineer. I have to figure out a way to speak to him so that he doesn't, just bring in on my shower on my ideas.
To say from a student perspective, and Thomas would love what I'm about to say. I'd like to see a lot more on statistics than we currently have. I don't know how much it is in kind of in the industry, but for a lot of the stuff that I've been doing, they rely heavily on statistical methods and tests and things, and some of them have been kind of beyond what we covered in the statistics courses, so I've had to like come find them myself. So I would like, because it seems, I thought, I'm never gonna use this stuff. But after Tom was done lecturing, I'm forgetting. But that was not the case at all. Especially as I've gotten more. Okay, so I've been proven wrong, maybe. On more expensive one.
I just wanna say, because coming from the background of, like, I have two brain, one is half engineer and one is geographer now, thanks to Tarmo and the geomatics course. And I was actually transitioning from before engineering and come to this faculty. I was kind of feel like, what am I doing? Like, is it too idealistic for me to study environmental study and geography? But I think this is what the essence was that really helped me thrive in other career. And in terms of course design, I would really say that in the certificate itself, I would say any portfolio course is building on to like a API and web application, because we are doing a lot of individual topic and core question in forestry, fire, hydrology. If we can make that in a portfolio seminar kind of course, that would be like a steps keys to the subject.
So yeah, we've done that in the 4th year GIS course. Wow. Okay, round of applause again, everybody. All our guests who joined online, all of you who joined in person in the morning, the afternoon. I know many of you have left. Well, not you. And there will be a participant survey, and please do it. Thank you in advance for taking it. Yeah, Lily.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Yes,